I said I hit a door, and that should have been the end of it. Just another small lie swallowed between shifts and sleepless nights. But something in the way he looked at me made it feel different, like the truth had already stepped into the room before I could hide it. The restaurant buzzed around us, glasses clinking, low music humming through warm golden light. But all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Too loud, too fast, like it was trying to give me away. I kept my sleeve pulled down, fingers tight around the tray, pretending everything was normal, because normal was safer. Normal meant I could get through another night, another shift, another version of myself that no one questioned, until his hand reached out, steady, controlled, catching my wrist before the tray slipped, and in that 1 second, everything unraveled, fabric sliding just enough to expose what I worked so hard to hide, faint shadows against pale skin. Marks I told myself no one noticed. His eyes dropped, not rushed, not shocked, just focused, like he was reading something written there long before tonight. "Who did that to you?" he asked, voice low, calm. But it wasn't a question. It was something heavier, something that made the air around us feel still. I pulled my hand back quickly, forcing a small laugh that didn't belong to me. "I hit a door," I said, the words automatic, practiced, safe, the kind of answer that made people nod and move on. But he didn't nod, didn't look away, didn't pretend to believe me. He just studied me, eyes dark and quiet, like he was deciding something I wasn't part of, and for the first time in a long time, I felt seen in a way that didn't feel gentle. It felt dangerous, not because of what he might do, but because of what he already understood. The manager called my name from across the room, snapping the moment apart. I stepped back, fixing my sleeve, forcing my feet to move, to keep working, to keep breathing, but I could still feel it, his gaze. Following, not intrusive, not impatient, just there, steady, constant, like a promise I didn't ask for. When I came back with the check, he hadn't touched his drink, hadn't looked at his phone, like the entire night had paused at that one moment. He signed without looking, sliding the receipt back toward me, and beneath it, a card, thick, expensive, out of place against the polished wood. I hesitated, then picked it up, his voice stopping me before I could walk away. "Next time," he said quietly, "tell me the truth." I didn't respond, couldn't, because the words caught somewhere between fear and something else I didn't recognize, something that followed me out into the cold night air hours later, as the city lights blurred against wet pavement, as my phone buzzed in my pocket again and again, his name flashing across the screen, demanding, relentless, familiar. I tightened my grip on the card, the edges pressing into my palm, and for the first time, the lie didn't feel like protection, it felt like a countdown. I should have thrown the card away the moment I stepped outside, let the cold air clear my head, and convince myself that men like him did not belong in lives like mine. But instead I kept it, turning it over between my fingers as I walked the 6 blocks to my apartment, each step echoing too loudly on the wet sidewalk, like the city itself was watching, waiting. My phone buzzed again, his name lighting up the screen with a persistence that made my chest tighten. I did not answer. I never answered when he was like this, when his voice turned sharp and demanding, when every call felt less like concern and more like control. The hallway of my building smelled like old paint and something burnt, familiar, suffocating. I unlocked my door with hands that did not feel steady anymore, stepped inside, locked it twice, then leaned against it as if wood and metal could keep everything out. Silence filled the space, but it was not peaceful. It never was. I placed the card on the small kitchen counter, its clean edges and expensive weight looking out of place among chipped mugs and unpaid bills. Dominic Russo. The name stared back at me in embossed letters, too deliberate, too certain. I whispered it once, just to hear how it sounded, and immediately wished I had not, because it felt real now. Too real. My phone buzzed again, then stopped, and for a moment I thought maybe it was over. Maybe tonight would be quiet. But then a message appeared instead. Simple. Direct. "Where are you?" My stomach dropped. I did not reply. I could not. I moved through my apartment automatically, turning on lights, checking windows, small habits built from months of learning how to stay one step ahead of someone else's anger. I changed into a loose sweatshirt, the fabric soft against my skin, covering what I did not want to see. But even then I could still feel it, the memory of his grip earlier that night, the way he had looked at me across the restaurant, calm, certain, like. He already knew how this would end. I shook my head, trying to push the thought away. He was just a customer. Just a stranger who noticed something he should not have noticed. Nothing more. A knock on my door shattered that illusion. Sharp, sudden, too loud for the quiet hour. My breath caught. I froze in place, listening, counting seconds, hoping it was a mistake. But the knock came again, slower this time, deliberate. I stepped closer, every instinct telling me not to open it, not to make a sound. Emily. His voice came through the door, low, controlled, but unmistakable. My heart dropped into my stomach. He had never come here before, never needed to. The distance had always been part of the balance I tried to keep. I know you are in there, he added, softer now, like he was trying to sound reasonable, like this was normal, like everything was fine. I glanced at the counter, at the card, at the name that suddenly felt heavier than before. Two worlds pressing in on me at once. One loud and familiar, the other quiet and unknown. I took a step back, then another, my hand brushing against the edge of the counter, fingers curling around the card without thinking. And for the first time, the question shifted. It was not how to hide anymore. It was who I was more afraid of, the man outside my door, or the one who had already seen through every lie. I did not move at first, not toward the door, not away from it. Just standing there with the card pressed into my palm like it could anchor me to something steady. His voice came again, softer this time. Emily, open the door. And there it was, that shift, not loud, not angry, but worse, controlled, patient, the kind of tone that always meant he was not going anywhere. I swallowed, forcing myself to breathe, counting each second like I had learned to do. 1, 2, 3, but the silence between his knocks stretched too thin. And I knew if I did not open it, he would keep going, louder, longer, until the neighbors noticed, until everything spilled out into the hallway where I could not contain it anymore. My hand reached for the lock before I could stop it, fingers trembling as I turned it slowly, the click, sounding louder than it should have. The door opened just enough for me to see him, and he looked the same, familiar in all the ways that used to feel safe and now felt suffocating. His eyes scanned my face first, then the room behind me. Like he was checking for something, or someone. You did not answer your phone, he said, stepping closer, not forcing his way in, but not waiting to be invited either. I stepped back automatically, giving him space because that was easier than resisting. Always easier. I was working. I replied, keeping my voice even, neutral, the way I practiced in my head on nights like this. He nodded once, slow, like he was considering whether that answer satisfied him. Then his gaze dropped. Not to my face, not to the room, but to my hand, still holding the card. His expression shifted, just slightly, but enough for me to feel it, the tension tightening in the air. What is that? He asked, his voice quieter now. Too quiet. I hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough. It always was. He stepped closer, reaching out. Not roughly, not urgently, just deliberately, taking the card from my fingers like it already belonged to him. He read the name, and something changed, something I could not quite define, not anger exactly, not fear, but recognition, like a piece of a puzzle falling into place that I did not even know existed. Who gave you this? He asked, and for the first time that night, I did not answer right away, because the truth felt different now, heavier, dangerous in a way I did not understand. Just a customer, I said finally, but the words felt weaker than before. Like they could not hold their shape under the weight of his stare. He looked at me again. Longer this time, searching, calculating. And then he smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. You should be more careful, he said, handing the card back, his fingers brushing mine for a second too long. People like this do not just notice things for no reason. The way he said it made my stomach tighten, because it sounded like a warning, but not the kind meant to protect me, the kind meant to remind me where I stood. I nodded slightly, not trusting my voice anymore, and for a moment, neither of us moved. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, like something unseen had stepped between us, something that did not belong to either of us. Then he turned, walking further into the apartment like it was his, like it had always been his, and I stood there, still holding the card, still feeling the echo of another pair of eyes from earlier that night, calm, unshaken, certain. And for the first time, I realized something I had not allowed myself to think before. One man saw my lie. But the other one, he was waiting for the truth. He moved like he belonged there, like the walls knew him, like the air adjusted around him without question, and I stood near the door, watching, trying to understand how everything had shifted so quickly, how one night, one glance, one card could change the balance I had been holding onto for months. "You have not been answering me lately," he said, his voice calm, almost casual, but I knew better than to trust calm. Calm was never just calm. It was measured, controlled, waiting for the right moment to turn. "I have been busy," I replied, keeping my distance, my hands wrapped around themselves like that could stop them from shaking. He glanced around my apartment again, slower this time, taking in the small details, the secondhand couch, the stack of unopened mail, the quiet that never really felt like peace. Then his eyes landed back on me. "Busy with what?" he asked, and the question was simple, but it felt like something else underneath, something sharper. I hesitated, just for a breath, and in that pause, I saw it. The way his expression tightened, not enough for anyone else to notice, but I did, because I had learned to read those shifts like survival depended on it. "Because it did work," I said again, softer now, and he stepped closer, not fast, not threatening, just enough to close the space between us, enough that I had to look up to meet his eyes. "You smell different," he said quietly, and the words made my chest tighten in a way I could not explain, like he was noticing things I had not given permission to be noticed, like nothing about me was hidden anymore. I shook my head slightly, trying to pull myself back into something solid, something familiar, but my thoughts kept drifting to the restaurant, to that moment, to the way another man had looked at me without asking for anything in return, without needing an answer to believe what he already knew. "It is nothing," I added quickly, but the words felt thin, fragile, like they could break if pressed too hard. He watched me for a long second, then reached out, his hand hovering near my wrist, not touching, just close enough to remind me how easily he could. "You should be careful who you talk to," he said, his tone softer now, almost like advice, but it did not feel like concern. It felt like control, like a boundary being drawn without my consent. I nodded, because nodding was easier than arguing, easier than explaining something I did not fully understand myself. And for a moment, the room fell quiet again, but it was not the same silence as before. It felt heavier, like something unseen was building, pressing in from both sides. Then my phone lit up on the counter. A single notification cutting through the stillness, unknown number, my breath caught, because I already knew, before I even picked it up, before I even read the words, I knew. I turned the screen toward myself, my fingers trembling slightly as I opened the message. Just one sentence, simple, direct. "You are not safe when you lie." The air shifted instantly, sharper now, charged. I could feel his eyes on me, watching, waiting, and for the first time, I did not know which direction the danger was coming from, the man standing in front of me, or the one who did not need to be in the room to change everything. The message burned into my screen longer than it should have, like the words were not just written but pressed there, with intention, and I could feel it. The shift in the room, the way his presence sharpened behind me without him saying a single word. "Who is that?" he asked quietly, and I did not turn right away, because I knew the moment I did, something would change, something I would not be able to take back. "No one," I said, too quickly, and the lie felt heavier this time. Not safe anymore, not small. He stepped closer, and I felt it before I saw it. That same controlled energy, that same expectation, that I would answer the way he wanted. "Show me," he said, and it was not loud, not aggressive, but it did not need to be. It was a command dressed as a request. I tightened my grip on the phone, my thumb hovering over the screen, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might give everything away. For a second, I thought about handing it to him, about choosing the familiar, the known, the version of my life I understood even if it hurt. But then my eyes dropped to the card still in my other hand, Dominic Russo. The name felt different now, not just a stranger, not just a moment, but something that had already stepped into my life without asking permission. "It is nothing," I repeated, softer this time, but I did not move, did not hand him the phone, and that was when the silence broke, not loudly, not dramatically, just a small shift, the kind that changes everything. He watched me for a long moment, then nodded slowly, like he was making a decision I was not part of. You are acting different, he said, and there was something in his voice now, not anger, not yet, but something colder, something that made the air feel tighter. I swallowed, forcing myself to stay still, to not step back, to not show the fear that was rising too quickly. I am just tired, I replied, but even I could hear it, the distance in my own voice, the way something inside me had already started to pull away. He reached out again, this time taking my hand, not rough, not forceful, just firm. Enough to remind me how easily he could hold on. You should not let strangers get into your head, he said, his thumb brushing lightly over my knuckles, and the gesture might have looked gentle to anyone else, but I felt the meaning underneath it, the warning, the claim, the quiet insistence that my world should stay small, predictable. My phone buzzed again in my other hand, and this time I did not need to look to know who it was. The timing alone told me everything. I pulled my hand back slowly, carefully, and stepped away, just enough to create space, just enough to breathe. And for the first time, I did something I had not done before. I turned the phone toward him, not fully, not offering it, just enough for the screen to be visible, enough for him to see the unknown number, the message still glowing. You are not safe when you lie. The words hung there between us, heavier than anything either of us had said. His eyes flicked to the screen, then back to me, and something changed again, something sharper this time, more aware, like he finally understood that this was not just about him anymore, not just about control or routine or the life I had been quietly surviving. There was something else now, something outside of him, something he could not immediately reach or silence. And for the first time since he walked into my apartment, he did not step closer, he did not speak right away, he just looked at me, really looked, and I saw it. The moment he realized he was not the only one watching me anymore. The room stayed quiet longer than it should have, like even the walls were waiting to see what he would do next. His eyes did not leave mine, but they were different now, not just focused, not just controlling. There was calculation there, something shifting behind the surface, like he was trying to understand a situation that no longer followed his rules. Who sent that? He asked finally, and his voice had changed, still calm, still controlled, but sharper, more precise. I shook my head. Slowly, because the truth was I did not know. Not really. I only knew the feeling, the same one from earlier that night. The way Dominic had looked at me like he already understood everything I had not said. I do not know. I answered, and this time, it was not a lie. Not completely. He studied me for another long second, then glanced at the phone again, his jaw tightening just slightly, enough for me to notice, enough for me to feel the tension building in the space between us. You gave someone your number, he said, not accusing, just stating it like a fact, like something that had already happened and could not be undone. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out right away, because the answer was not simple, because this was not something I had chosen, not really. And yet it felt like a door had already been opened, one I could not close anymore. It was just a customer, I said finally, but the words sounded weaker now, smaller, like they did not belong in this moment anymore. He let out a slow breath, stepping back for the first time since he entered my apartment, and that alone made my chest tighten, because distance from him was not relief, not yet. It felt like something else, like the calm before something I could not see. People like that do not just send messages, he said quietly, more to himself than to me, and I realized then, this was not just about me anymore. This was about him trying to understand another man, another presence, something outside his control. My phone buzzed again, the sound cutting through the tension like a sharp line. I looked down, hesitated, then opened it. Another message, do not answer him. My breath caught, my fingers tightening around the phone as the words settled in. Simple, direct, impossible to ignore. I felt his gaze. Immediately, heavier now, watching every reaction, every shift in my face. What does it say? He asked, and this time there was no softness left in his tone, no patience, just expectation. I swallowed, the air feeling thinner with every second. Then slowly, deliberately, I turned the screen toward him again, letting him see the message without saying a word. Silence stretched between us, longer this time, heavier, and I saw it. The exact moment something clicked in his mind, the realization that this was not random, not coincidence. that someone else was already involved, already watching, already stepping into a space he had always controlled. His expression changed again, not outwardly, not dramatically, but enough for me to feel the shift in power, subtle, but real, and for the first time, he did not reach for me, did not step closer. He stayed where he was, eyes fixed on the phone, then slowly lifting back to mine. "You are going to block that number," he said, and it was not a suggestion, not even a request. It was a line drawn clearly, firmly, like everything else in my life had always been. But something inside me hesitated, something small but undeniable, because the message still lingered in my mind. The tone, the certainty, the way it did not ask, did not demand, it simply knew. And for the first time, I did not move right away. I did not obey immediately. I just stood there, caught between two voices, one familiar, one unknown, and I realized something I could not ignore anymore. One of them wanted control, but the other one, he wanted the truth. I did not block the number, and the silence that followed that decision felt louder than anything we had said all night. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in recognition, like he understood exactly what that hesitation meant, like something had shifted that he could not control anymore. "Emily," he said, slower now, more deliberate, like he was choosing each word carefully. "This is not a game," and I felt it. The weight behind that sentence, the expectation that I would fall back into place, that I would choose what was familiar, what was safe, what was his, but my fingers tightened around the phone instead, the screen still lit, the message still there, "Do not answer him." And for the first time, I realized it was not just a warning. It was protection, quiet, certain, without pressure, without demand. I looked up at him, really looked this time, and something inside me felt different, not stronger exactly, but clearer, like a line had been drawn somewhere deep inside. And I was finally seeing it. "I am not answering anyone," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. His expression shifted again, just for a second, enough for me to see the calculation behind it, the way he adjusted, adapted, like he always did. "Then you will block it," he replied, still calm, still controlled, but firmer now, like the outcome had already been decided. I shook my head. Just slightly, but it was enough, the smallest refusal I had ever allowed myself, and it landed heavier than I expected. The air between us tightened instantly, not explosive, not loud, just dense, like something invisible had settled into the space and refused to move. He exhaled slowly, stepping back again, creating distance that felt intentional this time, not accidental. "You think this is about trust," he said quietly, almost to himself. "But it is not." I did not respond, because I did not know what it was about anymore. Not fully, only that something had changed, something I could not ignore. My phone buzzed again, softer this time, almost like it knew it was interrupting something fragile. I glanced down. Another message, "Stay where you are." My breath caught. The words simple, but the certainty behind them unmistakable. I did not show him right away. Not this time. I kept the phone angled toward myself, feeling his gaze sharpen instantly, sensing the shift even without seeing the screen. "What does it say now?" he asked, and there was less patience in his voice this time, less control, just a thread of something tighter underneath. I hesitated, just for a second, then looked back up at him, and for the first time, I did not feel the need to explain, to soften, to make things easier. "It says nothing important," I answered, and the lie felt different now, not protective, not automatic, but chosen, deliberate. His eyes locked onto mine, searching, measuring, and I could see it. The moment he realized he was no longer the only one deciding what mattered, that something else had entered this space and it was not leaving. He took one step closer, slow, controlled, stopping just short of reaching me, like he was testing the distance, testing me. "You are changing," he said quietly, and the words hung there, not as an accusation, but as a realization. I swallowed, my heart racing, but I did not step back, did not look away, because deep down, I knew he was right. Something was changing, not all at once, not loudly, but enough that I could feel it in the way I stood, in the way I held my ground, in the way I no longer moved just because he expected me to. The room fell silent again, but this time, it was different, not heavy, not suffocating, just still, like the moment before something inevitable, and somewhere. Beneath the tension, beneath the fear, beneath everything I had been holding on to for so long, a quiet thought surfaced, one I could not push away anymore. I did not know who was outside my door, or what would happen next, but for the first time, I was not sure I wanted things to go back to the way they were. The silence stretched just long enough to feel like a decision had already been made, but not by me, not this time. His gaze lingered on my face, searching for something that was no longer there, or maybe something that had finally appeared. I could not tell which. "You are making this more complicated than it needs to be," he said, his voice quieter now, almost controlled to the point of restraint, like he was holding something back. I shook my head slowly, because for the first time, it did not feel complicated. It felt clear, clearer than anything had felt in a long time. My phone buzzed again, softer, but the sound echoed through the room like a second heartbeat, steady, patient. I glanced down, another message waiting. "Open the door." My breath caught instantly, my eyes flicking toward the entrance without thinking. The lock, the handle, the thin barrier that suddenly felt too fragile to separate anything anymore. "Who is that?" he asked again, but this time there was no calm. Curiosity left, only a quiet tension, something tightening beneath the surface. I did not answer, not right away, because the truth was no longer something I could package into something safe, something easy. I took a slow step toward the door, my movements careful, deliberate, and I felt it immediately, the shift behind me, the way his attention sharpened, every muscle in the room reacting to that single choice. "Emily," he said, firmer now, a warning wrapped in my name, but I did not stop. My hand reached for the handle, fingers brushing against the cool metal, and for a second, everything slowed, my heartbeat, my breath, even the noise outside fading into something distant. I hesitated, not out of fear, but because I knew this moment mattered, more than anything that had come before it. I turned the lock, the sound sharp in the quiet space, and pulled the door open just enough to see. He stood there like he had always been there. Like the night itself had shaped around him, Dominic Russo, calm, composed, his presence filling the hallway without effort. His eyes found mine immediately, not searching, not questioning, just certain, like he already knew I would open the door, like this had never been a possibility, only a matter of time. He did not look past me, did not acknowledge the space behind me. He only looked at me, and somehow that felt louder than anything else. "You took longer than I expected," he said quietly, his voice even, almost calm, but there was something underneath it, something that made my chest tighten in a completely different way. Not fear, not pressure, something steadier, something that did not demand but simply existed. I swallowed, my hand still on the door, caught between two spaces, two worlds, and for a moment, I did not know which one I was standing in anymore. Behind me, I felt the tension rise, sharp, immediate, like a line being crossed without permission. "Who is that?" The question came again, louder now, directed at both of us. But Dominic did not turn, did not react, his attention never leaving me. "You should not have to explain yourself," he said, softly, but clearly enough that the words carried into the room behind me, and everything changed in that instant. Because it was not just what he said, it was how he said it, like the truth was not something to be forced, not something to be taken, but something that belonged to me, and me alone. I felt it then. The difference, sharp and undeniable, one voice demanding control, the other offering something I had almost forgotten existed, choice. And as I stood there, between them, between everything I had been and everything I could not yet understand, I realized something that made my heart race for an entirely new reason. This was not just about being seen anymore. It was about deciding who I wanted to be when someone finally did. Everything held still, not because nothing was happening, but because too much was. His presence filled the hallway without force, without noise, just certainty, and behind me, I could feel the shift, the way the air tightened, the way the space I had known for so long no longer felt like mine. "Emily." His voice came again, sharper now, closer, like he had stepped forward without me hearing it, step away from the door, but I did not move, not this time. My hand remained on the edge of it, fingers curled lightly against the wood, grounding myself in something real, something I could choose. Dominic's gaze did not waver, not once. like he had already decided he would not look away, not for him, not for anyone. "You should not be told where to stand," he said quietly, and the words landed heavier than anything else in the room. Not loud, not aggressive, but steady, like a truth that had been waiting for me to hear it. I swallowed, my heart racing in a way that felt unfamiliar. Not panic, not fear, something sharper, something clearer. Behind me, the tension shifted again, more immediate now, like a line had been crossed that could not be redrawn. "You do not know what you are talking about." The response came quickly, controlled but tighter, less certain than before, and that was when I realized this was not just about me anymore. This was something else. Something between them, something I did not fully understand but could feel unfolding around me. Dominic finally moved, just one step forward, not into my space, not past the threshold, just enough to close the distance between us slightly, enough that his voice dropped lower, meant only for me. "You are allowed to choose who you listen to," he said. And it was simple, so simple it almost felt obvious, but it was not in my world, not in the way I had been living. Choice had never felt like something that belonged to me. It had always been something negotiated, something adjusted, something given and taken without me noticing. My fingers tightened slightly on the door, the edge pressing into my skin, grounding me in that moment. In that realization, I turned my head just enough to glance back, and for the first time, I saw it clearly, not just the familiarity, not just the history, but the expectation, the quiet assumption that I would step back, that I would close the door, that I would return to the version of myself that kept everything contained, predictable, silent, and something inside me shifted again, deeper this time, more certain. I looked forward again, meeting Dominic's gaze fully, and for a second, nothing else existed, not the apartment behind me, not the tension in the room, just that steady presence, that quiet certainty that did not push, did not demand. It simply waited, and somehow that felt stronger than anything I had known. My voice came out softer than I expected, but it did not shake. "You should leave," I said, but I was not looking at Dominic when I said it. I did not need to, because I already knew who I was speaking to. The silence that followed was immediate, sharp, like the entire space had exhaled at once. I felt it before I heard it, the pause, the disbelief, the realization settling in, and for the first time, it was not me adjusting, not me stepping back, it was him, and that changed everything, because as I stood there, holding the door open, feeling the night air brush lightly against my skin, I understood something I had not before. The moment you choose differently, even once, the world does not stay the same. It cannot, and neither do you. The words stayed in the air longer than they should have, like even the walls needed a second to understand what I had just said, and behind me, I felt it, the shift, not loud, not explosive, but unmistakable, the kind of silence that only comes when something breaks without making a sound. He did not respond right away, and somehow that was worse than anything he could have said, because it meant he was thinking, adjusting, deciding. "You do not mean that," he said finally, his voice lower now, quieter, but there was something else in it, something unfamiliar, not control, not certainty, something closer to disbelief. I did not turn around. I did not soften. I kept my eyes forward, on Dominic, on the steady way he stood there without moving, without stepping in, without claiming anything, just waiting, and that waiting felt stronger than anything I had ever known. "I do," I answered, and my voice did not shake this time, not even a little. Behind me, I heard a slow exhale, measured, like he was forcing himself to stay calm, to stay in control of a situation that was no longer his to control. "You are choosing a stranger over me," he said, and the words landed differently than they used to. They did not pull me back, did not make me question myself. They just sat there, empty, because for the first time, I realized this was not about choosing someone else. It was about choosing myself. Dominic's gaze softened slightly, not in a way that weakened him, but in a way that steadied me, like he understood the weight of that moment without needing me to explain it. "You are choosing the truth," he said quietly, correcting what had just been said without raising his voice. And something in my chest tightened, not from fear, but from recognition. Because that was exactly what this felt like, not rebellion, not escape, just truth, simple and terrifying and impossible to ignore. I took a small step forward, just enough to shift fully into the doorway, out of the space behind me, out of the version of myself that had lived there. And for a moment, everything felt different. The air cooler, the night quieter. Like the world had adjusted around a decision I had not even realized I was capable of making. Behind me, the silence stretched again. But this time it felt distant, like it no longer had the same hold over me. "You are making a mistake," he said. And there it was, the last attempt. Not loud, not forceful, just certain, like he believed if he said it enough times, it would become true. I paused, just for a second, my hand still resting lightly on the door, and I almost believed him. Almost, because that voice had shaped so many of my decisions before. But then I looked at Dominic again, really looked at the way he did not move closer, did not interrupt, did not try to decide for me. And I understood something I had not before. A mistake is something you are forced into, something you do without seeing clearly. But this was the first time I could see everything exactly as it was, and I was still choosing it. "No," I said softly, and the word felt final in a way nothing else had. "I am not." The silence that followed was different now. Not tense, not heavy, just quiet, like something had settled into place. And then I heard it, the sound of footsteps behind me, moving away, not rushed, not dramatic, just leaving. And I did not turn to watch. I did not need to, because I already knew when the door finally closed. It was not just the end of that moment. It was the end of everything I had been holding on to for far too long. And as I stood there, facing the man who had seen through every lie without asking me to explain it, I realized something I could not ignore anymore. The hardest part was never leaving. It was believing you were allowed to. The door closed with a soft click, but the sound echoed through me like something much louder, something final. I stood there for a moment, my hand still resting against the wood, feeling the faint vibration settle into silence. And for the first time in a long time, the quiet did not feel heavy. It felt open, like space I did not know what to do with yet. I exhaled slowly, not realizing I had been holding my breath, and when I turned back, he was still there, exactly where he had been, exactly. As steady as before, like nothing about that moment had surprised him, like he had been waiting for it all along. "Are you all right?" he asked, and the question caught me off guard, not because of the words, but because of the way he said them. No pressure, no expectation, just a simple question that allowed me to answer or not. I nodded slightly, then shook my head, because the truth was I did not know. "Not yet. I think so," I said finally, my voice quieter now, softer, like I was still adjusting to the sound of it without fear behind it. His gaze stayed on me, not intense, not overwhelming, just present, like he was making sure I stayed grounded in that moment. "You did not have to open the door," he said after a second, and I felt it again, that difference, that space he left for me. "I wanted to," I replied, and the words felt strange, unfamiliar, but real, more real than anything I had said in a long time. He nodded once, like that answer was enough, like it was all he needed, and for a moment, neither of us spoke, the hallway quiet except for the distant hum of the city outside, the soft flicker of a hallway light above us. Then he reached into his jacket, not quickly, not suddenly, just a calm, deliberate motion, and for a split second, my body tensed. Out of habit, out of memory, but it passed just as quickly when I realized what he was doing. He pulled out his phone, glanced at it briefly, then slipped it back without saying anything, like whatever he saw only confirmed something he already knew. "You are safe here tonight," he said, and it was not a question, not a guess. It was a statement, quiet, certain, and something about that made my chest tighten in a way I did not expect. Not fear, not anxiety, something closer to relief, but deeper, heavier, like my body did not fully trust it yet. "How do you know?" I asked before I could stop myself, and for the first time, his expression shifted just slightly, not into a smile, not into anything obvious, but enough for me to see the edge of something else beneath his calm. "Because I do not leave things unfinished," he said, and the words should have sounded intimidating. Maybe they did, but not in the way I expected. There was no threat in them, only certainty, the kind that did not need to prove itself. I swallowed, my fingers tightening slightly at my sides, trying to understand what that meant, what he meant, but before I could ask anything else, he stepped back just slightly, creating space again, always giving it, never taking it. "Get some rest," he added, his voice softer now. And for a moment, I thought he was going to leave, just turn and disappear back into the night like this had all been a moment that would fade by morning. But he did not move right away. He just looked at me, like he was making sure I understood something without saying it out loud. And then, finally, he turned, walking down the hallway with the same quiet control he carried into every space. And I stood there, watching until he disappeared, until the hallway felt empty again, until it was just me and the silence and the weight of everything that had changed. And as I closed the door slowly behind me, leaning back against it, I realized something I had not allowed myself to believe before. Safety did not always come from where you expected. Sometimes, it came from the moment you finally chose yourself, and someone else simply made sure the world respected that choice. Sleep did not come easily. It lingered somewhere just out of reach, like my mind refused to let go of everything that had shifted in a single night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the faint glow of streetlights slipping through the blinds, casting soft lines across the walls, and for once, the silence did not feel threatening. It felt unfamiliar, like a space I had not learned how to fill yet. My phone rested on the nightstand beside me, screen dark now, but I could still feel it, the weight of those messages, the certainty behind them, the way they had cut through everything I thought I understood. I turned onto my side, pulling the blanket closer, trying to ground myself in something simple, something ordinary, but even that felt different now, like ordinary had shifted into something new, something I could not define yet. Morning came slowly, pale light replacing shadows inch by inch, and for a moment, I just lay there, listening, expecting something, a sound, a knock, a reminder that last night had not been real. But there was nothing, just quiet, steady, uninterrupted. I sat up slowly, my body still tense out of habit, but the tension did not find anything to attach itself to. It just lingered, unsure. I reached for my phone, hesitating for a second before unlocking it. No missed calls, no new messages from him. And that absence felt louder than anything else, like a door that had closed without warning, without explanation. But beneath that, there was something else, one new message. The same unknown number, my breath caught as I opened it. Good morning. Just that, nothing more, no demand, no instruction, just a simple acknowledgement that I existed beyond the moment, beyond the fear, and somehow, that felt heavier than anything he had said the night before. I sat there for a long second, staring at the screen, trying to understand why something so small could feel so significant. Then I typed a response before I could overthink it, before I could stop myself. Why are you doing this? The message sent, the 3 dots appeared almost instantly, like he had been waiting, like he had known I would ask, because you were never meant to survive by lying. I read the words twice, then a third time, letting them settle, letting them reach places I had not allowed anything to reach. Before, my chest tightened, not painfully, but deeply, like something inside me was shifting again, slowly, carefully. I stood up, moving through my apartment with a different awareness, noticing things I had ignored before, the light, the quiet, the space that now felt like mine in a way it never had. I walked to the window, pulling the curtain aside just slightly, and for a moment, I thought I imagined it. A black car parked across the street, still, unremarkable to anyone else, but something about it felt intentional, like it had been there longer than just this morning, like it was not passing through. My heart skipped, but it did not race, not the way it used to. Instead, it steadied, grounding me in the realization that something had changed not just inside me, but around me. I was not alone in this anymore, not in the way I had been before. I let the curtain fall back into place, my reflection faintly visible in the glass, and for the first time, I did not look away. I held my own gaze, steady, unflinching, because the person staring back at me was not the same one who had whispered lies just to get through the day. She was someone else now, someone who had stepped into something unknown and had not turned back. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Another message, simple, direct. Today, you tell the truth. And I realized then, this was not over, not even close. This was just the beginning of something I could no longer ignore, something that would not let me hide again. And as I stood there, breathing in the quiet morning air, I understood one thing with absolute clarity. The truth was not just something I had to say, it was something I was about to become. The message stayed on my screen longer than it should have, like it was not just telling me something, but waiting for me to become it. Today, you tell the truth. And for the first time, I did not feel fear reading those words. I felt something steadier, something that had been building quietly all night. I got dressed slower than usual, not because I was tired, but because I was aware of every movement, every choice. Every moment I used to rush through just to get to the end of the day. The mirror caught me again as I passed it, and I stopped this time. Really stopped, my reflection looking back without hesitation, without that instinct to look away. The marks were still there, faint now, fading, but visible, real, and for once, I did not try to cover them. I let them be, because they were not something to hide anymore. They were something I had survived. The walk to the restaurant felt different, the same streets, the same sounds, but none of it pressed in on me the way it used to. It felt like I was moving through it instead of being held inside it. When I pushed open the door, the familiar noise rushed in, voices, glasses, footsteps, but it did not swallow me whole this time. It just existed around me. Emily, you are late. My manager called from across the room, sharp, impatient, the same tone as always, but it did not hit the same. I walked over, calm, steady. I am not late, I said, and the words came out clear, not defensive, not apologetic, just true. He blinked, caught off guard, and for a second, he did not respond, like he was adjusting to something new he had not expected. I moved past him before he could say anything else, tying my apron, stepping into the rhythm of the shift. But this time, it felt like I was choosing it, not surviving it. The hours passed differently, slower in some ways, sharper in others. I noticed things I had not before, the way people spoke, the way they looked, the small details that used to blur together when I was trying to disappear, and then I felt it, that shift in the room, subtle, but undeniable, like the air itself had changed. I did not need to look right away. I already knew. When I finally turned, he was there, sitting at the same table, the same quiet presence, Dominic Russo, watching, not intensely, not possessively, just present, like he had always been part of the room even before I noticed him. My heartbeat picked up, but it did not spiral. It steadied, matching something in the way he held himself. I walked toward the table, not rushing, not hesitating, just moving forward. And when I stopped in front of him, I did not look down. I did not adjust my sleeve. I did not hide. Good evening, I said, my voice calm, clear, and this time, when his eyes dropped briefly to my wrist, I did not pull away. I let him see. I let him know. And something shifted in his expression, not surprise, not approval, something quieter, something that felt like acknowledgement. Good evening, Emily, he replied, and there was something in the way he said my name, not claiming it, not controlling it, just recognizing it, like it belonged to me. What can I get you? I asked, and it sounded simple, ordinary, but it was not. It was a choice, every word, every moment, and he leaned back slightly, studying me for a second, like he was seeing something new, something I had not shown before. The truth, he said quietly, and the words did not feel heavy this time. They did not feel like pressure. They felt like something I already carried, something I no longer needed to hide. I held his gaze, steady, unflinching, and for the first time, I answered without hesitation, without fear, without a lie, because the truth was no longer something I was afraid of losing. It was something I had finally found.